The last time I was in Maranello, I bumped into a former colleague of mine, Rory Byrne, a name you will remember as chief designer with Scuderia Ferrari, the Formula One team, and Michael Schumacher. Well, now Rory has taken a step back and is working as a consultant, and I asked what he was doing for the road car division. He said, a secret road car project to celebrate 70 years of Ferrari production in Maranello, codenamed the F-150. Well, codenamed the F-150 inside the Ferrari fortress perhaps, but to the general public that project became known as LaFerrari. And in the Romance languages that translates as the Ferrari, the definitive example. Well, let's take this opportunity to delve under the skin of this definitive Ferrari and see exactly why the Ferrari enthusiasts love this motor car so much. Well, the power plant of the LaFerrari is a naturally aspirated V12. Nothing too unusual about that from the chaps at Maranello, although it is wonderful to see that the assembly line workers have signed their creation. But what does make this power plant unique is this down here, the KERS system, the kinetic energy recovery system, which adds about 160 brake horsepower of pure electronic power. So 160 brake from the KERS system, 800 plus horsepower from the V12, that's about 1,000 horsepower at the driver's disposal. Rory's contribution to the LaFerrari was round the chassis. It was asked to try and make the chassis as stiff in terms of torsional rigidity as possible. And using the latest state-of-the-art carbon, he's managed to make this car some 25% stiffer than the Ferrari Enzo, which in itself is a fantastic piece of mechanical engineering. Well, more Formula One technology, it's all over this cockpit. The driver's position in the car is set. The seat itself doesn't move. Just like the Formula One cars, it is the pedal assembly and the steering wheel which move back towards the driver, which keeps the driver in the optimum position for weight distribution around the car. More Formula One technology. Well, clearly you can see that on the steering wheel, F1 inspired beyond belief. Digital displays for the driver to look at, all of that can be changed from the settings on the steering wheel, and we have wet settings, sport settings and race settings, which will alter the braking, will alter the electronics on the car, the engine mapping on the car, and the way that the damper system works. 7-speed dual clutch system so that the odd and even ratios are controlled by a separate clutch, which makes that transmission shift in an absolute heartbeat. All in all, I have to say that the interior of this cockpit is a beautifully inspired piece of engineering taken straight from Formula One. Throughout Ferrari's long and distinguished history of making road cars in Maranello, only 2 of those road cars have not been made in collaboration with the styling house of Pininfarina. The first car was the 308 GT4 back in the 1970s. The only other car? Yeah, the LaFerrari, made in-house, styled in-house by Ferrari's own team of aerodynamicists. Exquisite body styling around the car, but remember, all of this aerodynamic styling is also functional. There is a diffuser at the back of the car, which is creating a low pressure area underneath the car, pushing the car onto the road or onto the racetrack. What we've seen with the LaFerrari, beautiful body styling, phenomenal power plant with the KERS and the V12, and only 499 examples were made available to the public for sale. But if that wasn't enough, when production stopped of the LaFerrari, they produced this, the LaFerrari Aperta, and only 210 examples exist, which makes it phenomenally collectible. But this isn't just a LaFerrari with the roof removed. They've had to undergo extensive modifications to the chassis design, the monocoque, to allow this to work. You may remember seeing on the LaFerrari that the door hinge itself had been mounted in this area. Well, clearly there's nowhere to mount that door hinge, which has meant a complete redesign of the monocoque and the door system further ahead of the driver. Also, the mirrors are different. They're at a lot more lateral angle than the LaFerrari. Now, Ferrari wouldn't allow an awful lot of modifications to be made to the Aperta, but one thing they did agree to was to put this wonderful little detailing with a pinstriping around the car. We mentioned that the LaFerrari was made for 70 years of celebration of Ferrari road car production. No badging on the LaFerrari, but on the Aperta, on the lower flanks, we can see the 70th anniversary badges. The LaFerrari and the Aperta. Well, in my humble opinion, Rory Byrne and his colleagues at Maranello have absolutely outdone themselves with the production of these two wonderful supercars. And Michael Fuchs, the current owner of these cars, will be bringing them down to Kissimmee in January 2019 for the Mecum auction. And me, I cannot wait to see the reaction from the crowds when these two cars go across the block.